Okay, welcome to a long-form video of a discussion of the changes I've made in the recent update to Ace Racers SP. Hopefully you can hear me okay. I got fans on in the background, but... So, just a quick review of why there's so many posts for one update. Well, these last three are just little fixes where I found some problems and then after I had already uploaded it. So the actual update is these experimental external cams for Rockhopper class. Okay, so there's 5 FPV cameras on the Rockhoppers, and now there are 5 corresponding third-person cameras at the same angles that are pulled back away from the vehicle. You access those cameras with toggle switch, which is default keybound to Y. There's also a new scene, some new songs, and some new billboard art. But I'm mostly going to worry about in this video the change to the cameras. So I'm going to start the game. And I need to plug in my controller. Controller is live. So I don't know what changed, but my controller seems to be working better in the menus. I didn't change anything. I didn't even update Unity. It wasn't working very well before, and now it is. So the main change is only to the hoppers. So here I'll pop into the hoppers, and I'm not gonna worry about trying to look at the new scene right away. I'm going to go to a scene where I already have a course built, and it's a little bit more monochromatic. Okay, so here I am in one of the cameras. So here's a normal first-person view cam set. So here's front, up at 45-degree angle, down at 45-degree angle, straight down, and straight up. So if I press the Y button, or anyways toggle the camera, so now I have the front camera, and I have an up at 45-degree angles camera, and I have a down at 45-degree angles camera, and I have a straight down camera, and I have a straight up camera. So if I'm going to fly around, then I can see all of the different angles that I'm actually trying to go. So obviously this is where I'm going, but because I'm fighting gravity, this is a better way to fly straight along the ground. And then I need to hit the brakes, but as you can see in this case especially, even though on the Rockhopper the primary thrust is stronger, you want to flip around, but in this case you only have thrust in one direction. Now this is how you use the brakes. And that's what the purpose of these 5 cameras is for. So this way you can see where you're going when you're hitting the brakes. Okay, so let me load up a course that I have made before. So here I am, and I'm on the landing pad. Here's my Snaplook camera. So I'm on the landing pad, and let's see, I can lift up. So another change that I made, I'll show real quick. If I'm set, now I can dock. There's a docking sound. Alright, so I'm going to just go ahead and try to fly around this course a little bit. One thing that you'll notice is there's no velocity cursor anymore. I have to take that off of the third-person cameras. So I'm going to try to figure out some kind of way to make a velocity indicator here, but the problem is that I don't know how to make it to the third-person view where it shows correctly where you're going. So if I switch to the first-person view, you can see I have that little velocity indicator. That tells me which direction I'm going. Okay? And then that helps because then sometimes it's just hard to tell exactly where you're going if you're aiming for a hole. But with this view, it's in the wrong place. And that's because places it on the screen if the camera is where the ship is. But if you're standing back a little ways, now it's kind of hard to tell exactly what that means because it's not a line from the ship to the indicator from your perspective when you're watching it. Yeah. So the way to do it would be to make actually a 3D object instead of like a 2D object that's on the screen. So because it's a 2D object on the screen, you just can't point where you're going. In order to point where you're going from a third-person perspective, it needs to be kind of point out in front of the ship, obviously, which is possible to do that, but then it always disappears inside of the environment. And the other problem with that is I have to make the whole thing. And I didn't have time to do that, like, just now, today when I was like one, so I just deactivated it. So now, the thing is it is a little bit harder to tell where you're going in the third person view, but if you get watching it, actually you can tell, especially when you're moving in that direction. Not quite moving straight in that direction, it's a little bit harder to tell. So here I'm coming up on a landing pad. So I'm going to use these other perspectives. Now I need to hit the brakes. See, that indicator is helpful when you're hitting the brakes. So now what I'm going to do is I'm going to not very good at lighting, so I got to get to the right angle for you to be able to see this. But use some of the new billboards. Comic strip made by Rico Steez. It shows that these people are getting ready here. There, what is that? Is that a little rocket? They got their controllers. The rocket launches all the way out into a suborbital trajectory into space. The course is starting to inflate. Then the drone is flying around the course, and here you can see the pilots. They're flying the drone with their course from remote control down on the ground. And the drone is up there in the space. And then it falls back down just like a model rocket or something like that. And here the artists, the artistic license, the artist in this case selected to present the event occurring on a very small model rocket, which is good. But it would be an ideal situation if you were hoping that you could drone race spaceship right from your house, that you could use a rocket only that size. So I really actually like that, even though it's science fiction. It's not realistic right now. There's just no way to package the amount of talent it takes to launch a vehicle to space into a vehicle that size. Now, the drone itself could be that small right now already. You can use a very small tank of gas, very small microscopic parts. They can make that. It might not be that performant, it might not have much flight time, but it would be able to exist. Alright, so here's the next one. Also by Conrico Steeds. And we have a few versions of this. So this is basically the same one, but slightly different. Here you get the shark face on it. And here's my joke. Because these are drones. So as we saw in that comic, it's just these little drones. So here we have Captain Kirk. Like, what is this? A spaceship for ants? It's pretty funny because it is a spaceship for ants. Okay, so here we have some concept art of somebody holding my 4-joystick controller. This is all art for my website, but I went ahead and put it in the game anyways because I do want this art in the game. I mean, the game is developed around the concept of the special controller configuration with extra joysticks and stuff like that. Maybe this one is a little bit bigger than that picture. So here we have version 2. This one I call the Ace, and so now you see there's a throttle stick on there. So if you wanted to play flight simulators with it, then you can have, or helicopters and stuff like that, then you have a stick. And then here's the one that is kind of closer to what I have. And the major difference between the one that I just waved on the screen is that on this one you can see that there are R1, R2, L1, L2, which are backwards. He's always getting R1 and this artist is always putting the R's and the L's on the wrong side. But anyways, so when you're especially using these top sticks, the big sticks, those buttons, I always wish I had those, and I don't have those on my controller. So I'm having to reach down to these other sticks down here. But that's one of the limitations of, you know, I built it at home by slapping stuff on the board. So sometimes there's just nothing you can do about that. And here's another controller picture, which is poor resolution because that artist had made this little thumbnail. But anyways, I like this picture, even though the button configuration is very different from the one that I wanted to have on there, and the one that's on this one. So I think this button configuration is closer to what I imagined. However, this picture is really good because it has these 4 button plus hat switches. And the 4-joystick controller for a lot of games would actually work great if they weren't joysticks but were instead hat switches. So this controller kind of gives you that idea where you have all these hat switches on the back, right? So by having these hat switches on the back, you could really have the same functionality in a lot of cases as the joystick, but in a hat instead. So I really like that art, and that's all the art that's in there. So now let's preview the new scene. So I call this new scene Titania Mine. So the asset is actually a desert base, and it had some wind turbines in it. And it's out in space, so I am imagining they were going for Mars. But I deleted all the grass, all the sticks, and I removed a bunch of the rocks just for performance. And so now we're out here at Titania Mine, and Titania is a moon around Uranus that has a mass that is not terribly different from Luna, Earth's moon. And the reason I selected Titania is because, first of all, the mass of it isn't that different from the moon, so you kind of have some kind of justification for the amount of gravity that the lunar vehicles have, because the gravity is a number that I took off of Wikipedia for the moon's gravity, an average of the moon's gravity, and it's red. Because, I don't know, they're going for Mars or something like that. But Titania is not a moon that we have very good images of, but in the images that people people have taken with their flybys. It is a very red moon. And because Titania is nice and red, and because I already have a Jupiter moon as one of the other levels, I was like, well, Titania would be cool. And it lets me use the Uranus in the background. So there's Uranus, or Uranus, big blue Uranus, and you can see the rings. And I'm not really sure how far away the moon should be from Uranus. In this case, it should probably be closer, actually, because Titania is like the closest moon. But, you know, I'm working with some pictures that are just in the video game maker's catalog, and there just isn't that many out there. So, I figure maybe the moon is not so far out. I don't know. I have no idea. So the base is pretty good. You can see there's just different stuff scattered around. And it uses some of the same assets as the giant spaceship interior. And save myself flying around. There's some cool things because some of these buildings are flying into. This is right in front of us. And so I'll just try to fly into this building really quick. It's easier for me to fly in the first person view. That's what I usually practice. I get a little bit disoriented in the third person view. But it's easier to see the ship flying about in the third person view when you're watching a video. And another thing too is FPV cameras are really good, but especially if you haven't played the game very much and you're not aware your ship is and stuff like that, it can really help to kind of step back and get a view. And I had some third-person cameras that you could use for that already, but the problem is that those cameras don't have all the angles. So when you want to get flying faster or come into a stop and stuff like that, it's a multi-step process to try to get control of your momentum and stuff like that. So I wanted to have third-person cameras that gave you the up angle 45 degrees and down angle 45 degrees. So actually, now that we're at the end of the video, nobody's going to be watching by now anyways. I do want to go ahead and discuss the 45 degree angle cameras a little bit. So it's very rare to see 45 degree angle cameras in a video game. Okay? So when you're having a flat camera in front of you, you push left, then the screen moves left. But if you're at a 45 degree angle, that is not the case. You get some amount of rotation and some amount of in one direction and some amount of rotation in another direction. So in order to move the screen left, you have to, it's a double action basically. So it's not very common in games. However, if you're fighting gravity, and this is the case with quadcopter drones, then you actually have to be able to tilt your vehicle at an angle in order to both resist gravity and move in the direction of travel. So, because of this, with quadcopter drones, for example, you just have to get used to it. To the 45 degree angle, you just have to learn how to move in a 45 degree camera. And then also in this case too, same story. I mean, you just have to get used to it, and then you'll gain that capability where you can tilt really steeply, aggressively forward and accelerate and still fight gravity a little bit. And then you can get some momentum going. And then likewise, you know, you don't want to get all lifted way up into the air. You want to hit the brakes. Well, so you need to be able to have a nice aggressive full stop angle. But then you also need to be able to have a more gentle, less aggressive, you can still see down stop angle. Alright, that's my video, and thank you very much.